In 2019 in Lebanon, a spontaneous riot broke out after the government announced that they wanted to tax all WhatsApp calls at about £4.50. Thousands of different factions of Lebanese, the rich, Muslim, Christian, poor, the farmers, stormed the streets demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister Hariri. It all started when importers were complaining about a shortage of dollars. This led to the Lebanese pound losing its value against the US dollar for the first time in 20 years. Around that time, the government decided to introduce new taxes on tobacco, petrol, and of course the famous voice calls of WhatsApp. The spontaneous backlash caused the government to cancel the tax, but the dragon was already out of the cave, and the riots continued for weeks and almost months.
Thousands of demonstrators have taken to the streets of Beirut in Lebanon for a third day of anti-government protests, paralysing the city. Protests have erupted against proposed new taxes, which includes changes on WhatsApp calls and opposing a challenge to the coalition government. The government reversed the tax on WhatsApp calls, but the protests have spread to other parts of the country with demand for better living conditions and an end to endemic corruption.
This was Lebanon's worst financial crisis in decades. People were already angry that the government couldn't provide basic services like electricity, clean water, public health, weak internet connection.
Lebanon is witnessing its worst economic crisis in decades. In just 2 years, Lebanon's financial meltdown has rendered about 3/4 of the population into poverty and devalued the Lebanese pound by nearly 90%. Earlier this year, the World Bank described Lebanon's economic crisis as one of the worst the world has witnessed in over 150 years.
So how did a country that was once seen as the Las Vegas and the Paris of the Middle East come to this? To find out how we got here, we need to go back to the 15-year war that Lebanon went through, that I believe ended in 1991, when they decided that all the different factions should come together and be represented in government. This was supposed to last for only 3 years, and it elevated a lot of warlords to the level of statesmen that they weren't really built for, which led to corruption, collusion. People who had no business being in government started hijacking the banking system and colluding with the commercial bankers to embezzle money. At this time, I believe the IMF was lending them money to try to build infrastructure in the country after all those years of war. They never had it so good. Lots of big companies started coming there to build shopping malls, build big their business in, like KFC, McDonald's, Pizza Hut franchise. But behind the scenes, Lebanon was being bullied by Syria, being bullied by Iran through the Hezbollah, and the savings of the ordinary man and woman was slowly being siphoned off abroad to buy houses and apartments. When the 3-year came up, nobody wanted to change it because they were now embedded into this corrupt system of the ruling class, and there was no way they're going to leave. But when the chickens came home to roost, the bankers shut the doors of the bank. You couldn't get them on the phone, you couldn't get it by fax, you couldn't get it by email. Meanwhile, they were taking dollars out in the billions.
طالب بحقي بمصرياتي بتعبي بجانا عمري سرقوه جانا عمر الناس كلها سرقوهم هالحرامية وحطوها باسم اولادهم وحطوها برا ببلاد برا.
This meant a lot of hard-working Lebanese citizens couldn't actually get their own money in the bank, and so they started throwing rocks and stones trying to get into these banks.
Defying a lockdown and a curfew, protesters attack a bank in the capital, Beirut. The value of their money is decreasing at an alarming rate. And on Monday, their anger at the central bank's policies and at a political class they accuse of corruption and mismanagement erupted in a wave of violence across the country. Demonstrators in Tripoli in northern Lebanon blocked roads and fought with police. Officers responded by firing rubber-coated steel bullets which injured protesters.
Lebanon's banks have borne the brunt of the protesters' fury. They've imposed strict capital controls on accounts, freezing access to cash as food prices soar.
I'm not expecting you to return the money that you took. Just be a little bit human and listen to these people dying from hunger.
The Lebanese army has deployed across Tripoli to contain the unrest. as the government still works on a rescue plan to drag the country out of its current turmoil.
And in case you think this can't happen to you, let me tell you, it's happened in Nigeria, it's happened in Zimbabwe, it happened in Greece, remember during the COVID? It's happened in Venezuela, where a quarter of the population have deserted and left the country. It happened in so many South American countries. Let's cut to a more personal take on this fiasco from an investor called Tony Yazbeck, who had this conversation with Brandon Gentile.
One day, literally overnight, went to bed, woke up the next morning with a homeless sign on my forehead. Why? Because it was announced that banks had seized everybody's accounts. No one had access to any more money. Gone. Poof. Your credit cards don't work. The ATMs don't work. Nobody answers the phone at the bank. And for the first time, I had no expression or words. I actually sat down and started to shake. I have no idea what's for lunch, whatever's in the kitchen. And when that runs out, where are you going to replenish it from? There's no money to buy anything. You had supermarkets looted, you had people on the street rioting, it was complete mayhem, like something you've never seen before. And how people survived, me included, is we were thrown back to the Stone Age.
Tony Yazbeck said there was no money to buy anything, so what they ended up doing is battering with each other.
If you have a skill, with something, you trade it for something else. So barbers, for example, were giving out free haircuts for someone who had a farm or a garden.
The worst of the worst. Make of that what you will. I mean, use your imagination.
When you're given no choice, beggars can't be choosers at that point.
This is when he discovered that the currency or fiat money that we're working with was worthless.
And that's what took me down the rabbit hole, to understand that the money that we were told we have to work day and night for, save in a bank in order to live happily ever after, that is a complete lie. That is concoction, that is complete bullshit. There's zero truth to it. But unfortunately, 99% of the world still believe that Kool-Aid because they haven't been subjected to what I just described.
They converted all your dollar savings, converted that to the Lebanese dollar, which promptly tanked by 63%.
If you were saving in US dollars in a Lebanese bank, they illegally converted your US dollars to the garbage local currency, which then hyperinflated to nothing. Okay? The US dollar doesn't belong to the Lebanese government or the central bank, but they stole it anyhow. Then they applied capital controls. Nobody can take their money. But during that same time that those capital controls were supposedly active, billions of dollars were being siphoned out of the country.
About 100 billion to be exact. Around about that was being siphoned out of the country.
Who do you think that money belonged to? The corrupt politicians and the bankers and all that who were responsible for this heist. They were funneling their funds outside the country because why not?
Confirmed that for years, Lebanon's politicians and bankers have stored wealth in offshore tax havens and used it to buy expensive properties.
It's their privilege, right? While the rest of the country goes to hell.
He comes up with the thesis that money in the bank is a shit roll, worthless.
So that was the lesson that I learned, that the money in a bank is not, first of all, it's not money, okay? It's worthless toilet paper that is printed by a bunch of psychopaths on a whim. They want money, they hit a button, they print it. You and I have to go work for it. So the fiat system, I learned, was simply created for theft, control, and surveillance. Nothing more. And when you live through an experience like this, there's no force in this universe that's going to change your mind about this fact.
He also said that we that live in the West, where everything sort of still works, when we hear a story like this, we think, well, that can't happen here. After all, they'll bail me out. Nobody expected COVID. What's it called? A black swan event. And anything like that can happen. Look at what Donald Trump did with tariffs in America this year. 100 days of presidency. More like Reaganomics.
But most people that still live in privileged countries, especially like in the West, in the US, in Europe, where everything still works, okay? You listen to a story like this, it might shock you or affect you in the moment, but after the conversation is over, your life is pretty much still unchanged and you go on about it as if nothing happened. But the Ponzi that's going on in the background is not stopping.
His thinking is also that the fiat system is a rigged system, and I concur. And I think most people who've come into crypto agree with this. That's one of the reasons why they want to be in something that's a finite amount that's going to come out. Only 21 million, if you will. I mean, check out my What's Bitcoin to understand a bit more about Bitcoin. What can I tell you? Let's carry on.
The fiat system is a rigged system. You cannot win in this system. It is designed to destroy you financially. It's a system created to steal, right? It's like when you go to a casino, what are the odds of winning? Less than 1%. But yet everybody goes because they think they're smarter than the next one. And sooner or later, they come out also empty-handed.
Fed up with this harrowing situation, he decided to look for a solution. Remember, this is 2019, 2020, during the height of COVID. His aha moment came when he stumbled across Andreas Antonopoulos' video. He had a revelation. Let's hear what he said about that.
And then one day, I stumbled across an Andreas Antonopoulos video about Bitcoin, and somehow, a glimmer of hope came back into my life. But, I didn't want to set myself up for even more disappointment. So I had to research it myself. Given my background, I tried to blow it up. And of course, I failed. It does sound too good to be true, which is something that a lot of folks also mention. It's no way. There's no way there's something this good. They're going to shut it down. They're going to steal it. They're going to control it, blah, blah, the same thing. Same thoughts that went through into my head. All it takes is for a few hours of research to understand that this is not possible. Decentralization that Bitcoin has continued to improve on, that's impossible. So much so that now, instead of attacking it, they're adopting it, and now they're FOMOing into it. Game theory in full motion.
Where does Bitcoin come into this? How does this idea, this discovery of Bitcoin, how does this radically transform your life? Look like of you going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole?
Yeah, man, this happened almost all at once. When I found out what happened, how the bank stole the money and all that, after a little bit of research, I understood who was responsible for this. And I understood that this is just how the system was rigged. And that fueled me with so much rage and anger that I didn't know where to place it. It was such a powerful hatred towards something that I couldn't control, right? And so when I found Bitcoin, it was the first glimmer of hope to completely break free from a system that was designed to keep you down. The fiat system is a slave system. As long as you stay in it, you are literally somebody else's donkey. You don't have control over your money. It's not your money. It's not even money to begin with. And you have to ask permission to use it. So Bitcoin is a response to exit from the shackles of those that absolutely hate you. The people who created the fiat system don't care about you. Absolutely not. What they care about is power, control, and surveillance, and to make sure they stay on top while you stay under their foot, under their whims and narratives, whatever those may be. Bitcoin offers you the chance to give those guys the finger and to tell them, I'm out, in a way where they cannot touch your money anymore. Bitcoin is permissionless, trustless. You can do with it whatever the hell you want. Nobody can control it. Nobody can manipulate it. Nobody can regulate it. Nobody can create it out of thin air. All they can do is use it. And it's yours. It's the only bearer asset the universe has ever seen that you can actually own 100%. Nothing else in this universe belongs to you.
Right, he continued by saying, Bitcoin offers you the chance to give the fingers to all the people who control the finance in a way that they can never touch your money anymore, because Bitcoin is permissionless, trustless, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. He said nobody can manipulate it, nobody can control it or create it out of thin air. It's like the only asset in the universe where you can own 100% in your wallet and no one can touch it. I think IRS and tax people will have something to say about that.
Nothing else in this universe belongs to you. That's another thing that I learned the hard way. Not your house, not your car. Nothing you think is yours. Why? Because they can, write up another piece of paper, change the rules, boom, it's gone. And if you resist, well, they'll send men to your front door. And unless you've got a bigger army than that, than the one that's coming to visit you, you're going to have a problem. So you either give up or you get thrown in jail. Pick your poison.
It was definitely rough for the people in Lebanon. And a few months later, they had a big explosion that destroyed a whole bunch of Beirut and killed a lot of people. But I hope they get it together soon. But if they'd had Bitcoin back then, a lot of people would have been telling a different story now. You can see how angry Tony was. So there you have it, the case for Bitcoin. If you're not convinced, then I don't know what else to tell you. But you can see how angry that man was, and you can see what people in government did, and you can see how they've pulled that type of thing in many other different countries. But if you don't own your own money and they can debase it anytime, then what control do you have? This is the case for Bitcoin. I'm Alexander F. Onileri from Caliban Crypto, and I rest my case. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.